people. How are you doing? Caught us just in time there as I was throwing the headphone into my ears as I'd quite simply forgotten to put them in because that's who I am. Hope you're doing well. Let me know if you're about in the comments. I see people are just starting to arrive now in the time honored tradition. I'm going to stick a bit of Ravi on while that's happening, give people a chance to get involved. Also, if you're already about, if you would like to leave us a nice early reaction on it. Apparently, I've been reading The Eloquent Quirk posted something around reactions. Apparently, angry reacts and that are bad for visibility, but positive reactions like heart and all them other ones, laughter, all that, apparently that helps it. So if you would like to do positive reactions, positive vibes only, that's great. But in the meantime, I'm having a drink of this water. I read back in the Who's Like Scooter. Peter the A to the T, RUN.com/Cow Daily. That's patreon.com/Cow Daily. If you join as a patron, you help support independent media and become part of a cult involved in meditation. And no, it's not really support independent media, and I appreciate it greatly. Also, if you want to do that via links in the description for PayPal, you can do that there. Also, if you are joining us via YouTube, you can do super chats as well. So please give it a consider because it's massively helpful. Right, Ravi, off you gone. People have joined in. Let's see who's about in the comments. Matty's about calling people tits again, getting his elbows out, fucking big hard lad and that. I hope I've just sworn the first 5 minutes. Sorry. Shazbot's about. Slaz is about. Nice to see you. Class. John Nash, much love right back at you. Linda Harvey, nice. Ashley Smith, I caught your comment, you thinking I'm in the Illuminati when I was just pulling some, like, this kind of crack coming out of the mist. I don't the left one in it. I don't even know me left, me right at this point. Never mind. Zoe's about. Nice to see you. Glasgow, fellow peace extremist. Who else? Carol Booth's around. Nice to see you, pal. Always a pleasure. Never a chore. Sorry if I've missed anybody. Jacqueline Hemmons is about. Anybody else earlier in the stream? Apologies for missing you, but do pipe up. Right. Just bear with us. Frog in the throat. Today, we're going to talk about like propaganda and extremism, because we're not the extremists, by the way, as much as people want to try and crack on like we are. And here's why. No extremism. Also, Alice Wolf got in touch with us, texted us at like 7:30 this morning, was like, Nadine Dorris losing her shit on Good Morning Britain. So it's like, look, I'll try and like put this in the show. So if Alice, if you're about, all the best, pal. Thanks for the tip. I can confirm I watched it and it was great. Also, we're going to talk about Beyonce as well later on. Some of your favorites. So to illustrate the point today, Aldous Huxley, the purpose of propaganda is to make one set of people forget that other sets of people are human. What does that mean? Well, look at the front page of the Current Bun. PM slams protest abuse, screeches the sun. Where have all the poppies gone? No sellers at stations amid fears of attack. By the way, the police actually put out a statement saying there was no credible evidence about this attack on a poppy seller in Edinburgh by so-called hate marchers or whatever they were trying to call them. I mean, this, what you see on the screen from the Sun, is one of just several pieces of scurril which emanate from the Home Office, which is crazy. I mean, can you think of any times in history where street thugs, the media, and the government being in full alignment has ever been a good idea? Because I can't. So more, Daily Mail, football hooligans, alliance supporters warn fans, do not come tooled up. with weapons as they bid to protect the cenotaph from pro-Palestine protests and sell out coach for hundreds to head to London. Nice of the Mail not to call with hate marchers, I suppose, but it's sparse pickings at the minute. And also interesting that these thugs that are being bussed in have to warn each other not to come with knives. Interesting times we're living in. So this is a statement. I've tried to make it as big as I can on the screen so I can read it. It's in this really weird font though, which is entirely unlike the Flash, of course. The Flash. Right. This is from Football Lads Against Extremism. Oh, really? Oh, really, is it? Final call out to all football lads. The vets have reached out. Like, you'd think they'd be mad busy with their backlog, treating border collies and that, wouldn't you? After the lockdowns and that. The vets have reached out and asked for our support to microchip loads of border collies. No, can't be doing that. Sorry, that's the vets, the American term that like is being bandied around now for people who are in the army and that. I've reached out and asked for our support due to the threat from the far left and pro-Palestine supporters to disrupt the Remembrance Day parade. I mean, we covered earlier in the week. Absolute nonsense, and we'll go on to say why again to impress it in a moment. So the statement from these nutters goes on. We're calling on all the football lads up and down the country, that's coded language for far-right street thugs, to join us in standing shoulder to shoulder with our veterans that fought for our freedom. Did they? On Sunday, the 12th of November, we will be gathering at the Embankment Station from 10 a.m. We'll be leaving there at 10:30 a.m. to cause fucking chaos. I mean, like, protect our statues or something. 10:30 a.m. sharp, and walking up to the Charing Cross station to meet up with the other firms coming in from other parts of London. From there, we will walk in together to Whitehall for the minute silence at 11 a.m. Like the first football lads marches in 2017, we ask everyone to walk in silence in a show of strength for our veterans. Please copy and paste and share. Together we are stronger. It's going to kick off. Let's have it right. And it's not going to be very pretty, very nice, or very good in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Why is that? I hear you ask. Well, let me show you. This from Good Morning Britain. Let's see what is being said. The Home Secretary has accused the Met Police of playing favourites with protesters, claiming there's a perception that officers take a softer approach on so-called left-wing demonstrations. Let's have a look. Suella's to the right of the Met. Interesting times.
A Conservative MP said about her recently, she can't see a fire without wanting to pour petrol on it. And that is certainly how these remarks are going to be seen by some this morning. Let's take a look at some of the detail of it, because she compares what she calls the hate marches we've seen in recent weeks to the kind of sectarian violence we saw in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. She says they are being used by terrorist groups to push their agenda. And this is her central point. She says that police have taken a soft approach in recent weeks to these protests, in the same way, she says, as they took to Black Lives Matter protests, for example, and anti-lockdown protests, while taking a much harder line, a much tougher stance on nationalist protests and even football hooliganism. The Home Secretary writes in The Times, unfortunately, there's a perception that senior police officers play favourites when it comes to protesters. Right-wing and nationalist protesters who engage in aggression are rightly met with a stern response, yet pro-Palestinian mobs displaying almost identical behaviour are largely ignored, even when clearly breaking the law. And while, as you say, that is clearly a lot more explosive than what Rishi Sunak said yesterday, underlying both of their comments really is a very public message to the Metropolitan Police that, in the words of one newspaper front page this morning, if things go wrong at this weekend's march, on your head be it.
Yeah, this is a decision that the Metropolitan Police Commissioner has made, and he has said that he can ensure that he safeguards remembrance for the country this weekend, as well as keep the public safe. Now, my job is to hold him accountable for that, and we've asked the police for information on how they will ensure that this happens.
Well, after meeting Mark Rowley later in the day, Sunak said he'd been reassured that police were going to do all they can to keep the public safe. And the Metropolitan Police's position on this is that the risk of this march does not meet the very high threshold needed for a ban. And indeed, the organisers say they are going to do it 2 hours after the 2-minute silence for Armistice Day, and they are not going to go near the cenotaph. There's another risk, though. There's adding to the tension, which is now that there could be counter protests by far right groups. Here's what Labour are saying about it. The Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says Suella Braverman is out of control. Her article tonight is highly irresponsible, dangerous attempt to undermine respect for police at this sensitive time. She goes on to say either Rishi Sunak has licensed this or he is too weak to sack her. And
Right, that'll do from there. You get the general idea. The Home Secretary is instrumental, one could say, in whipping up some far-right street thugs. It's interesting, like the people who came before this generation of street thugs were targeted by Thatcher in the 80s and 90s. And the reason being is they just needed political football then. But now it's politically expedient for the next generation after Thatcher to use basically the sons and daughters of the far-right street thugs previously for their own maniacal ends, which is absolutely crazy that the government is in alignment with these people. And also, as I mentioned earlier in the week, Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins being reinstated from a lifetime ban on Twitter in the same week is no bloody coincidence. Let's have it abundantly right. Because if you think Elon Musk is good for humanity, you must be absolutely under a rock, like. And I know some are, because that's how they do. So, mad old times. Let's go to the comments and see what he's saying. Jacqueline is saying, it's just as bad in the US from the news clips I've seen. Glasgow is saying, number 10 didn't sign off on the article. Andy Taylor, Tories love hate. Sarah Stone, what could possibly go wrong? Who knows? Matty's saying, do you reckon that's what Brexit was for? 2 seconds. There was just a little fly there. That's been doing me beans in. So apologies for the crack there, but it needed to be done in. He wouldn't hurt a fly. Wrong. Brexit, as I said at the time before it went through, it was just about an erosion of rights and impediments for the fash, i.e. the government, to just do whatever the hell they want. John Nash just popped up there, Cruella the hate speaker. True story. Absolutely the case. It's just really, really, really dangerous at the moment. And a lot of this is also to discourage people from turning up, like at the marches, to make them toxic. And also it's going to bring along people to defend the protests who are specifically there to do that. So that's clearly going to result in the media and the tabloids especially just being on the starting blocks to slap some people on the front page. So all I'll say is like, it's just so hard, isn't it? Because like, even if you're defending yourself, it's going to be far left thugs, not like the people who've actually turned up. Yeah, man, the Stoke firm Naughty 40, who live up to their name, have got 2 coaches coming. And I remember like a few years ago, Gateshead High Street was an absolute war zone because they turned up, with no intention to go to the Newcastle match and just met and had a fight. Actually, no, it was up towards Sheriff Hill, but that's not important. It happened, and the police were right on the hop. And you know, God knows what's happening this weekend. What we got. So anyway, it says the missive, talking about the statement in mad font put out that we just read out. The missive shared by Football Lads Against Extremism, which has far-right ties, called upon supporters group, and this is from the Mail, by the way, to stand shoulder to shoulder and safeguard the planned Remembrance Sunday parade from potential threat from the far left and pro-Palestine supporters. Safeguard it from what specifically? On the screen for audio people, there's the expected route for the march due to take place on Saturday. As you can see by the red line on the screen, it goes nowhere near the cenotaph at all. Goes nowhere near it. So the far-right thugs, who are seemingly at the behest of the Home Secretary, are turning up to go towards that march. they're going to try and kick off. And however, man, it's a short hop on the tube from Millwall. So anyway, on the screen, further examples from the Daily Mail. Pray they don't end up with a riot at the cenotaph. I mean, it's just like, as Edwin Hayward says, yeah, Monday, pour petrol. Tuesday, pour petrol. Wednesday, pour petrol. Thursday, pour some petrol. Friday, more petrol. Saturday, light the match. Sunday, they express shock and disgust at the fire. How could this have happened, says the press. No idea. Not a clue. They had nothing to do with it. Clearly. Absolute madness incarnate. This country is a joke. This is something we showed the other day. Shelley Asquith, a trade union representative, clearly states, let's talk of trying to ban Saturday 11th November ceasefire now march or of disturbing events at the cenotaph. The march will go nowhere near Whitehall. Marching will start nearly 2 hours after the minute's silence. Remembrance Sunday is the following day, and armistice means ceasefire. So riddle me this. How are the peace protesters the ones spewing hate when we've literally got Stokes firm, the naughty 40, turning up? Do you know anything about them? I mean, down is up is down, and left is right. That's what it's about. Flood the zone with shit, and we all suffer. That's the game. We all know what the fucking game is. Jacqueline's saying Braverman belongs in prison, not Parliament. Sarah's asking Stokes firm. Stoke City Football Club, their hooligan firm is called the Naughty 40, and they have links with far right and fascism. Hope that covers it. Glasgow's saying, watch out for undercover cops trying to incite. Ashley Smith, from the ceiling to my knee, flies. Jesus Christ, I don't even know what I'm getting into here. Jacqueline, the press are complicit. They've got one hell of a nerve. True story. True story. B62 Boom On, nice to see you. Fly Destroyer, so much for the tolerant left. I have zero tolerance for flies, to be honest with you. I crush them up with me blade. So anyway, yeah, your friend and mine, Alice Wolf, texted us this morning at 7:24 a.m. Nadine Dorris going fucking wild on BBC Breakfast News. Long-time watchers and listeners will know Alice and I have this kind of like weird inverse kind of love-hate for Doris. Like, late, we'll call it. It's like hate with a capital L. Love, but hate. We don't like her, but we like her. So shouts to Alice Wolf. I managed to find a clip, and let's put it up on the screen. I don't know what it is about Doris, right? But we're just like kind of like her. It's weird. It's a weird time. We're both absolutely like decades steeped in Raj as well. And yet, for whatever reason, this clown always gets her laughing. So let's see what she's got to say.
Yeah, of course it's not. And I think what Suella's probably doing is she doesn't want to leave her post, does she? And everyone can see that we're 25 point. Everyone can see what's happening. And the competition is on now for who is going to be the leader of the opposition. That's what's happening within the Conservative Party right now. Who is going to be the leader of the opposition? And I think what Suella Braverman wants is to be sacked from cabinet. So that kind of gives her a status of, you know, I've been sacked for being honest and for saying what the right on the party feel. He's going to sack me. That will make me a hero. That will make me a martyr. And that will rally people behind us. I think that's what we're seeing happening.
Has she got the support of the movement that you described?
Oh, absolutely not. No, she doesn't know. Kelly Badenoch is the person they've been preparing for years. So she is very close friends with Dougie Smith and other people that I've mentioned, and she's the one that they've been grooming to take over for a number.
She is absolutely out of our lips, but fantastic. That's what we need to know. Spilling the tea, I believe it's called. Obviously, Doris being part of the Boris Johnson faction, who, trust me, something's about to come. I mean, you may or may not have noticed that Johnson got himself over to Israel and has been positioning himself just lovely alongside the Israelis for going forward. Also, that clip obviously ties in with the earlier part of this show about the propaganda, but also about the factionalism within the Tory party, which is just playing out in some kind of long psychodrama at the country's expense. And I mean, it's not going to get any better when Labour are elected, is it? So please, for the love of God, this time vote with your conscience. If you cannot do that with 3,000 or more dead Bens in the mix in Gaza, which has been basically back rubbed through by the ghouls at the top of the Labour Party, then you too, in turn, are lost. And if this loses subscribers, I'm not Raj to keep saying it like War Squids. Doesn't matter to us anymore. Never really did, actually, to a degree, because I just like numbers. It was more about that rather. But it's like, you've got to tell the truth. You've got to tell the truth in a world of lies, especially. And if people like react up against that, then it's not really about you, is it? Because you're speaking the truth. I understand truth makes people feel uncomfortable. And part of that is why the naughty 40 are getting on a coach. Like, you know, they can't possibly countenance that. The left could possibly be right in any way. And also, just fucking useful idiots, them and the other ones, aren't they? Hope they don't get caught offside and sliced up for saying that, though. Right. Comments. What B62 Boom 1 is saying. Paul hate Potato Golden will probably turn up with his pants in his head again out of respect for the fallen. A couple of pencils stuck in his nose. Just being that guy. Linda Harvey, nice to see you. And Hitler's a socialist, old tactics believed by the vulnerable far-right folks being used to police and stop the peace march. Indeed, they had to do that. Sarah's saying, yes, like Leicester Baby Squad. Exactly like that. They're actually rivals. Obviously a Midlands thing. David Livingston, nice to see you, pal. Distraction. Quite. Absolutely quite on a bike. Right, so would somebody please tell the terrorists to release the hostages, or else the good guys will kill another 3,000 children? Just wanted to read that out because obviously it demonstrates the absolute madness of this entire situation. Last one from me before we get off and get ourselves off. I thought this was very interesting and something that I'll probably do some follow-up on in the future. This from BBC.com. Beyonce Cardiff gig crowd was scanned for paedophiles. This was in May, apparently, and this is a recent article from this week. So, facial recognition was used on crowds attending a Beyonce concert in Cardiff to scan for paedophiles and terrorists. South Wales Police and Crime Commissioner Alan Michael said searching for potential terrorists at such events had become normal since the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing. He said paedophiles were also targeted as there would be very large numbers of young girls attending that concert. Mr. Michael described using such cameras as entirely sensible. Right. That'll do on that for now. And I wanted to mention this because this is clearly being used as a move to like warm us up for more controls. It does tie in with what Braverman's trying to do. It's that whole sort of create a problem and then have a ready-made solution for it. Resist this kind of stuff. Like once this stuff is like put in, we're never getting it out. And what with the UK, specifically parts of it that are built up being one of the most surveilled places on earth, do they really need all of this kind of stuff? I'm not suggesting they do or they don't, but in fact I am, they don't. Top and bottom of it is this. Our freedoms were hard won by the people that came before. It's our job to safeguard them and then actually advance that. Leave the world better than we found it. And quite frankly, we've got a hell of a lot of job on, and that's Spannon's flood the zone with shit. But we can win, we can do it, and keep your eyes on this kind of like creep towards more mechanical, technological surveillance. It's not great. It's certainly not just going to be, because, you know, they start off with like, you know, people causing trouble as they say nonces. Who can have a problem with that? Do you not want to catch nonces like? And then, as we've seen, it becomes hate marchers who are in reality peace protesters. And the consent is manufactured for that through, let's call them assets, like Tommy Robinson, influencers like Katie Hopkins and others. And they've done a hell of a good job of it. They call themselves anti-establishment while taking establishment money, and they do that at the behest of the establishment to forward their aims. Russell Brand's exactly the same, as we've detailed on this show on multiple occasions, notwithstanding the other, let's say, trouble Brand's got on. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a scenario where the establishment have done a very good job of making out that the left, or whatever you want to call it, is the establishment. That's interchangeable with the Labour Party, which are no friends of ours, or the actual left, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even think the left is like a term that collectivizes everything anymore. I think we've transcended beyond that, and we just don't really have the words, certainly not proliferated, to make sense and understand. But we haven't got time for that. I think what we need to be focusing on is trying to do everything in regards bringing a ceasefire. And if you think for 1 minute that the establishment would be going to all of these lengths, where it's patently obvious to anybody who's been paying attention that seriously, coincidentally aligned with far-right street thugs, and vice versa. And these far-right street thugs are trying to, like, you know, position themselves within the working class as anti-establishment, when all they are is just running dogs with jackboots and pairs of Adidas Gazelles and Stone Island Clubber, like what I'm wearing. So don't judge a book by its cover. Working class people come in all shapes and sizes, and we've got our costumes. Anyway, few comments before I get myself away and get this sorted and done. Right, let's have a look. Ben L. Robert is saying, let's have a look. Nice to see you here as well, my friend. The organiser of the Salt Armistice Day event at the Cenotaph in central London has given his support for the pro-Palestine march in central London on Saturday. I wasn't aware of this, so thanks for this, Ben. Richard Hughes from the Western Front Association, a charity that holds a commemoration on the 11th of November for the casualties of the First World War, said his organisation believed in freedom of speech. I think a lot of people are trying to whip this up, said Hughes, the association's legal trustee, who was also responsible for the organisation. Absolutely tremendous. And thanks so much for that. I've obviously been on air, not seen that yet. So brilliant. And thanks for allowing me to include that in the show, because it's a nice bookend to the whole piece. So what else? Glasgow. I love needing Doris going scorched earth. B62 Boom 1. Doris's Holocaust comments are vile. Haven't seen them. Can't imagine that they are, because she is as vile as much as Alice Wolf, and I kind of like her in some weird way. How you's back. Nice to see you, pal. She's bit of that BJ dissed her. I haven't actually seen the dissing, but you know, she'll go back. They all do. She loves him. She loves him in a really toxic fashion. So that's where we're at, man. John Nash is saying influencers, effluencers more like. Yeah, right, Warcade. So that's what we've got to watch out for at the moment, chaps. Really would be really helpful if you would share this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course www.com. No, it's not even that. YouTube.com/Cow Daily. That's youtube.com/Cow Daily. Please subscribe there if you haven't. Please subscribe on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and just leave a nice review, because it really does help. 5 stars and all that. And also, if you can positive react this wherever you find it. So heart reacts, laugh react, all that, apparently really good for the algorithm. So if you'd like to do that, likes are neutral apparently, and angry faces actually step on it. So if you could do that, that'd be great. All the very best. Love yous. Always a pleasure. Never a chore. Let's leave last word to Zoe Jarrett. Glad I've got you lot to keep me laughing and saying much love and take care. I echo those sentiments. Love to you all. I shall see you next time. If you want to support work, go to patreon.com/Cow Daily. And I shall find the end titles. They're here. See you later. Try home.